April 9th, 2018 meeting of the Rutherford County Regional Planning Commission. If you would stand with us, please. Commissioner Jim Averwater will lead us in our prayer and our pledge. Jim.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and the opportunity to be here to discuss county business. We ask that you watch over us and give us guidance and everything that we say and do, and give us lively discussion tonight if needed, and make the right decisions. In your name we pray.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Call the roll, please, Gail.
Rhonda Allen. M. Averwater. Lee Bogle. David Jones. Mike Cush. Craig Lynch. Chip Pinion. Charlotte P. Pettis Reed. Mike Vaught. Jeff Phillips.
Present.
Have a quorum.
Thank you, Gail. At this time, we need to approve the minutes for our January 22nd meeting. I'll call on our Vice Chair, Mike Cush.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Those meeting minutes have been reviewed. They look in order, so I would make a motion to accept those to the archives.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of that motion to approve the January 22nd meeting minutes, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you. We have no items withdrawn or deferred, thank goodness. Under new business, 6A, rezoning requests that are scheduled for public hearings. 6A1, item 18-A009, North Boulevard, Church of Christ by Glenn Norman. Location is Burnt Knob Road. Commission district is 9. The county commissioner is Joe Gurley. Size of the site is 19 acres, tax map 78. Existing zoning is residential medium density. Proposed zoning is institutional. Doug.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and good evening, Commissioners. Information provided by the applicant in the letter that they submitted has been attached with your agenda materials on your iPads, indicates that they wish to construct a 16,000 square foot church to accommodate over 500 occupants. It's the west campus of the North Boulevard Church of Christ. They currently meet at the Farmers Market building at the Lane Agri Park, and they've seen regular attendance of around 350 people, and they'd like to find a more permanent location for that church branch. This use falls under what we would classify as a large community assembly, which is anything greater than 500 persons. Small community assemblies and also medium are allowed in the RM. Small community assemblies are allowed by right. That's anything under 150. Anything under 500, but between 100, basically between 150 and 500 is medium, is allowed by special exception. Large community assemblies are only allowed, or they're not allowed in the RM, which necessitates this rezoning request to institutional. Their average attendance right now is about 350. That would qualify them for a medium community assembly, but the applicants felt that their purposes would be better served to go ahead and request for the large community assembly zoning now, rather than have to make an application now to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and then as growth would continue, have to make another application for rezoning at that point. Staff alerted the applicant there are other rezoning applications that have been made in this area in the not-so-distant past. We did recommend they pursue institutional zoning, as the range of uses in that zone is much more limited than some of the commercial zones, and large community assemblies were allowed by right in this zone for this purpose. When we created the institutional zone, that was a new zone in this zoning ordinance. We didn't have anything comparable under the old zoning resolution we were under, and when we were creating that zone, we actually had this type of a use in mind when we did that. As far as access and everything is concerned, this would have access to Burnt Knob Road. They do have a concept plan that's attached with your agenda packets. They do show ingress and ingress to the site. The right-of-way for Burnt Knob Road is located within the Murfreesboro city limits, so any proposed access points would have to require city approval. Should this application be approved, a site plan would eventually have to be submitted for Planning Commission approval, and then we would evaluate the access at that point. As far as any landscaping, institutionally zoned properties are required to install a Type 1 buffer adjacent to residentially zoned properties. That's not as thick as, say, one of the commercial zones. A Type 1 buffer is a little less dense than a Type 2 or a Type 3. Again, landscaping and any other performance standards would be evaluated during the site plan at that time. Staff is in favor of this request. There are several factors that would support rezoning the property. Again, considering recent annexations and commercial rezonings in the area, the future West Side Park in the city of Murfreesboro being located directly across the street to the south of this property, also plans to widen Burton Knob Road to 5 lanes, and it is consistent with the recommendations of our comprehensive plan. That being said, drainage is always an issue. As you can see on the maps that we did attach with your agenda packets, the 2010 aerial did show a large portion of this property that had some flooding concerns. So any plan that would be submitted would have to be carefully scrutinized by our engineering department. And you can see on the map there that Mike's pulled up some of the drainage issues that this property did have. But again, we are comfortable with this request, and we do recommend approval. The applicant is present, and Mike, I didn't know if you had anything further that you wanted to add on that.
Well covered.
Okay, very good.
Any questions for staff?
So Doug and Mike, it looks like you've got city water running in front of the property?
I believe it's CUD water.
Yes,
Yes,
I'm
mhm.
sorry, CUD. Fire hydrant, not a problem. Pop that in close to the,
There's an existing, the closest hydrant's located about 950 feet to the west of the subject property. It's located right along Gritton Courts, an orange top hydrant. There is a green top, which again, the orange and the green, that denotes the flow and everything. Green is, I believe, anything from 1,000 to 1,500. Orange is anything from 500 to 1,000. Alan Stemke's here with CUD. He's nodding his head, so it sounds like I got that right. Of course, as far as the hydrants are concerned, that should be fine, but any construction would have to be built to current fire code and building code standards.
If it ceased to be a church with this institutional, what else could it be?
Up to my little chart here. Again, when we created the institutional zone, we wanted to kind of limit the type of uses that were in there. For instance, these are the type of uses that are permitted by right in the institutional zone: administrative services, again, community assembly, which is kind of what we're talking about here tonight. Let's see, community education, schools, and those things of those nature, cultural, recreational services, essential services, healthcare facilities, institutional care facilities, personal and group care facilities. Those are all permitted by special exception, so those would have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. You see a special exception for outdoor entertainment and amusement services. Again, that would have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And let's see, special exception for medical services, and that's about it.
So this pretty well holds it to a church-type situation then?
Yeah, those type of uses, assembly uses.
Complete
yes, sir.
flip-flop, it couldn't be anything else.
Right, you wouldn't see like a Dollar General show up there if this were to be sold, because that particular use is not allowed in institutional. General retail trade was specifically prohibited in that zone.
Other questions for staff? Pettis.
I guess this is more towards the engineer, Mike. The water that we're talking about there, or the wet area, what you were showing there a while ago, where you were showing that situation, that does sort of go over to the properties west, I guess. In what way would they look at taking care of that?
Right. They would have to evaluate this area and look at the volume of the water that is created by any improvements that they make on the property. So for instance, if they add a large church parking lot, a lot of that's not going to soak in like it did, well, kind of did, earlier rainfall events. This is a heavy storm event that we had in 2010, but they have a lot of good soil in this area. A lot of Harpeth, Cumberland, Loman, all this yellow stuff is really good soil that will help the stormwater absorb, but they will have to look at the volume of rainwater that they're sheeting off their parking lot, all the impervious areas, the church, and they will have to offset that with some type of stormwater improvement, be it detention pond, retention pond. I talked to Jim Kerr, the transportation director with the city of Murfreesboro, and he said that the Burnt Knob Road expansion is not quite what they have shown on the capital improvement plan that they have. It is in the works, it's being designed, so a lot of this drainage will be accounted for with the road widening. So this area right here most likely can be picked up in drainage and drained off into Burnt Knob Road drainage network. This area in the back, not so much. This is something that they'll have to evaluate. But anything that we look at, the property, like you mentioned, the property to the west, yes, they were impacted by the heavy storm event that we had in 2010, and we will require that they evaluate this and not make this situation any worse. That was a long story, but that's essentially.
All right, two questions then, Mike. Did Mr. Kerr, if the project's in design, did he indicate when Burnt Knob may be under construction?
Well, let's see. They have currently on their capital improvement plan, they have begin construction of spring 2018. What he told me is the park, they're trying to make sure that the park is coordinated with the Burnt Knob expansion. So it's going to be a little bit behind this date. But it is on their radar and coming up pretty quickly. He wouldn't give me an exact date, but it's being designed right now.
Mike, is there any opportunity there if when the city designs the park, will the water flow to the south? Can you get it out of there that way? And
That's
a mutually beneficial arrangement there for that entire area, because we've looked at other stuff out there
Yes, sir.
that has poor
Right.
drainage.
Well, you can see
I don't know which direction sitting here the water flows, but
it kind of goes in several directions. This area right here looks like it's trying to migrate to the south. There's not a pipe, I don't believe. If there is a pipe, it's been silted over many years ago. But it looks like it's trying to migrate to the south to this depression in the center of the parkland. This area to the northeast is trying to go even farther to the northeast towards, I think, the creek, a little bit farther to the east. But yes, this whole area is just volume sensitive, a lot of sinkholes and karst topography.
So it looks like what would make sense then is push the building to the back of the property, and that left front quadrant may be a retention pond.
Yes, sir. They'll have to have some for their septic system as well, because they won't be on city sewer. But let's see. I think I have it on. Doug had it in the packet. I think they had a penciled up plan. So they are proposing just a rough sketch, the building in the back and the parking lot around it. Like I said, there's a sinkhole in the northeast corner, so they'll have to work around it. And then this area, the state has allowed septic systems to be in enclosed depressions, enclosures, so they very well could put a septic system in this area. That was just something that the soil scientists in the state will have to work out. But they are planning to answer your question, they are planning to putting it, I think there's kind of like a high spot in the back of the property right here on this area, kind of a ridge between the two depressions.
But
Another challenging site, but it's doable.
But in spite of the challenges, with the widening of Burnt Knob Road, there's the drainage issues can be addressed.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I believe they can. They have enough room on this parcel to make all that work.
Questions for staff? If not, I'll declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward. The applicants are invited, but I'll let you know that you don't have to speak unless you want to. Seeing no one rise, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Commissioners? Have a motion and a second to approve with all staff comments. Other questions or concerns? We have a motion and a second to approve item 18-A009 for the North Boulevard Church of Christ. All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. Doug, you have anything?
No, sir.
Our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, April the 23rd, 9 a.m. in the Planning Mez. Commissioners, anything? We're adjourned.